Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this series we are discussing the OpenTofu, right? And in our last video, if you have seen, we have discussed the life cycle rules, right? What life cycle rules are, how we can implement those, and what is the benefit of those, right? So we have discussed these three life cycle rules: create before destroy, prevent destroy, and ignore changes, right? And when we ended our last video, we mentioned that in next video we will gonna discuss the data sources, right? But what I feel is before we jump into the data sources, right? So I have one another topic which is very important. That is something called Open Tofu state, right? Or maybe you can call it Terraform state because that's how that it is created, right? Because at the end back end it's a Terraform only. So what is the state file, right? We need to understand first, then only probably we will get better understanding on the data sources, right? So let's understand what is the state file, right? So please be with me because it is very important topic to understand, right? When we run the Terraform plan or maybe the Terraform apply command at very first time, right? What happens is it plans and create the resources as per the configuration plan, right? Like whatever we have seen already. If I'm just saying tofu plan, right? So probably it will, okay, I think I am in different directory. Yeah, now we are good. If I will run tofu plan, so it's saying missing item operator. So there may be, yeah, in the last video, I think we have seen this rule number 3, and this was we have added, right? As of now, there is no resource called this. So I'm just gonna replace it and save it, and let's try to run one more time. So here you can see what it has done is, right. It has saying that 1 to add 0 to, like whatever that it has the configuration file. It just read all the files, and what it has done is it has just say that okay, I have that one changes I have detected, and that will be added, and one to destroy, right. But it did not implement it in real time, right. It just give us, right. If you want to do it, then only it is saying that run the tofu apply, right. So what exactly this is, the state file, right? So in state file, as I mentioned, right, whenever you are running it or you are creating it, so what it gonna do is it will create a file called terraform.tf state, right? So here you can see this is the file, right? And it has its own data, like the way it is tracking your resources, right? So whenever you are changing some scenario, right, because it is referring to the current and desired state, right? Whatever you have written in your desired state, let's say in main dot variable file or maybe multi provider dot file, whatever you have written, right? That is probably it will gonna see whether those changes which I have mentioned in this file, whether that is actually available or not, right. That is something that it will how it come to know. It gonna compare the current state and the desired state, right. If it feels there is a difference between the current state and desired state, it will gonna apply that, right. And if there is no difference, then obviously it will say nothing to change, right. So that's that how it is doing. There is one more thing. When you reapply the same configuration, right, and it will gonna refresh that state, right. That's what I just mentioned, because it gonna read all the configuration file and the state file. No difference, no changes, fine. But if you have changes in your configuration file, then obviously it will gonna apply those changes and stored that new changes in their state file, right. Because next time whenever you in future you are running that tofu apply again or the tofu plan command again, it will gonna refresh it, right. So that's how that it gonna track those all those changes, right. So that's the kind of purpose of this state file, right. I will gonna mention here. So what it is do, it stores the resource dependency in the state file, like which one needs to be changed or removed, or maybe if you have defined some kind of dependency, implicit or explicit, right, which we have already discussed. If the required information is no longer available in the configuration file, it will gonna update it, right? So so Terraform each time refresh the state to reconcile the state and then cast it, right? But that could be impact the your performance, right? So it is not like it is good basically, but the thing is if you have that uh, like if you have a big infra, right, where you have multiple resources running, right, and that's what that you are doing, right? So what it will gonna do is it will obviously it will just cast all the information, it will gonna read entire configuration, and then it will gonna compare with the current state, right? So it will might impact your performance, right? But that you can ignore, right? So to ignore that, what will happen is, let's say if I say tofu apply now, so obviously it will gonna apply that one change which was there, right? So it is now. Now if I say tofu plan, right? So it is saying that your infrastructure matches the configuration, right? What it is doing, it is, can you see this refreshing state? Why? Because by default, whenever you run the tofu apply, it will gonna refresh the state file and will compare that the current and the desired state, right? But this behavior can be ignored, right? Or can be manipulated. How? Let me show you. There is a flag called refresh equal to false, which is uh, uh, true by default, right? So here you can see that it never went to my state file. It directly mentioned that no changes because it is just reading your configuration file. It is not refreshing or that is doing, right? But see, this is not something that recommended because it might create an inconsistency across your infra, right? So make sure that whenever you are using it in the test and development environment, or maybe if you are doing some testing or if you are learning, then probably it is beneficial to put it refresh false just to save your time. Can you see, it was just hardly took 1 second, but when we ran the same command last time, it refreshed each and every configuration file and then it gave the no changes. But here it never went to the state file, it directly find okay what is the configuration file and that is there, fine, it go no changes, right? So that's what. And one more thing, right? So this TF state file is very, very important, right? You cannot keep it on your subversion, right? For the large team collaboration, I am telling, if you need to keep your this normal file, right? Whatever that configuration file you are putting, right? Configuration file, that is recommended to put it on some kind of versioning tool, right? Like GitHub, Bitbucket, right? Versioning tool, like you can put on GitHub, you can put on Bitbucket, right? So that is recommended to put there, right? But what if the TF state file, that is not recommended to put it on subversion? Number one reason is it might have your sensitive information, right? Why? Because I will show you when we start the AWS project also. It restore or it keeps your information in the plain text format. So here you can see, if I'll just show you that permission, directory, sensitive information is null, as of now nothing, but the content probably if you can locate somewhere, so that is something that it is putting it in this, you can see that, right? Content. So it keeps your data in the plain text format. That is the one reason. And the second reason is if you put this TF state file on your versioning system, versioning tool, right? Any tool, then every time you cannot use with the large team, right? If you are a sole administrator, probably you can use the versioning tool because you know that what has been changed, and every time you need to pull and push that file, right? But in the large team, that is not recommended because it might get consistent. Because see, whatever I am doing, I will just do. So what I have this, let's say I have the state file v1, right? and I have added few more content with the local file. Let's say I'm talking about, right? I have pulled that all configuration git clone, and I have that configuration file added few more content, right? And I'm still working on this file, right? And I will, I let's say I plan to push it maybe day after tomorrow or after some time, right? So what will happen is by that time another developer will also have this v2 file, v1 file, right? And he changed some other content, let's say, okay, and already pushed to GitHub, right? Now on GitHub, if you see, we have the version 2 file, version 2 of your state file, right? But being a here, right, being a developer one, you still have the v1 file, and now you are finalized with your content. And if you are trying to push it to GitHub, right, it will say that okay, no, you are not having the latest branch data, right? So what it will do, you will not have that branch data, right? So it will say that you need to pull it, and if you're gonna pull it, it will pull these state, right? And then that's where it makes the confusion. It makes your inconsistency across your infrastructure, right? So that is why it is not recommended to. Now the question comes now, if it is not recommended to put in GitHub, if it is not recommended to keep locally as well, because we cannot keep it locally, right? It should be somewhere that everybody can access. And on GitHub, it might have some sensitive information, IPs, password, certificate, or anything, right? There also, that is the reason we cannot keep. So the question is, where do we keep this file, right? So to keep this file, we have the recommendation, right? Where we can put it? We can put it on secure. Where is my cursor? Secure remote backend, which is nothing, kind of storage only. And what is that recommended for this? I'll tell you. We have the Amazon S3. We will see that. We can put it on Google Cloud Storage, might be, right? Or we can put it on Azure Blob Storage, right? Or we can put it on DynamoDB as well, where you can keep the log all these files, right? So that is this secure remote backend we need to. Once we will start the our project on Amazon and AWS or maybe Azure, I will show you like how you can keep your backend, right? So that it will not make any consistency, right? So that's how that you can use it, right? There are few more, I think, Terraform Cloud as well. Also, you can use, you can store your HashiCorp console. There is a term called, right? There also you can keep this, right? But that's how that you can keep your state file, right? So yeah, that is the most important to understand, right? Because whenever you are running, so it will gonna refresh it and it will gonna take that backup. Because whenever it got changed, right? Let's say if you want to roll back your infra, right? So you can roll back with the backup file tf state, right? You can apply that. And if it is no, then there will be no changes to that file, right? If I'll show you the property of this, probably here it cannot show you, but if I'll go to this place, we are discussing the OpenTofu, right? And I'll go to the Terraform log file. So that is the log file, because at time only one person can run it, right? But if you see the backup file, right, it was backed up at 140, right? And the tf state is, so what it will gonna change is, like whenever it find any changes, you can see the timestamp, right? It was just a down, we have created it. So that's how that this tf state will help you to do all this, right? So in next video, we will see that what is the data sources and how it is different from your normal providers or from the data sources, right? Because data sources is nothing. Data sources is something that which you want to read, which OpenTofu is not managing, and still you need information from those resources, right? So there is a way you can read that and you can maybe give it as a resource attribute input to the another provider, or maybe you want to just use in your configuration or something, right? So that's how that we can see all these, right? And I have few more command to understand this OpenTofu stuff, right? That probably we'll see. Let's say we have something called tofu validate, right? So it will not do anything. It will just tell you that okay, all the configuration filed are success, right? If you want to make sure that whether you put it in right syntax or not, that you can do, right? And if there is something called fmt, I think if I remember correctly, the format, right? So it will just show you that how many configuration file you have in your current directory, that it will show. If you want to check the current state, so tofu show will give you that okay, what you have, what you don't have, right? So it is just saying that with this you have this, with this you have this, right? So show is just to print the current state of your infra, right? Because that's how that it is reading from the tf state command, again the state file, right? And I think there is something called provider as well, which will tell you what all provider you are using in your configuration. So here you can see we are using a three provider. One is the time, one is local, and one is random, right? And provider required by state is this one. This is the repo name of that particular this is a repo, this is the maintainer of that particular provider, and this is the name of the provider. That's how you can read it, right? I think there is one more tofu graph if it will work. Yes. So here you can see it is giving you in the kind of dot format, right? Like how you have it is the these are the root files, right? And under that what you have the variable, like it's giving you all kind of stuff what is dependent on what, right? So that's how that it works, right? And yeah, that's it. I think these are the few commands which I will try to put it in some text file and will upload to the same GitHub directory. You can refer that. And from the next video, obviously, we're gonna discuss our data sources, right? So it was a kind of important topic to understand the state file, because to data sources will not something which is in state file, right? Because it is something that which we are managing outside of Terraform or maybe OpenTofu infrastructure, right? But still we need to read that particular thing and we need to feed into the another resource attribute as an input. That is why the data sources is important, right? So state file is nothing. State file is just which keep track of your current state and desired state, and every time when you run tofu plan or apply, it will gonna refresh the state file because it want to know whether there is a change in between desired and current state. That's how. And it is never recommended to put this state file on some kind of versioning tool. I have already explained what could be the reason. It makes a inconsistency, right? And to how to keep it for a secure and central place, then we have something called secure remote backend. Like every time when you run, first it will gonna download the state file from there, and then it will run and again automatically push. If there is some changes, then it will push that particular file to that. Now you will say, eh, if at the same time another developer will gonna run the tofu apply, what will happen, right? No, guys, it will gonna put a lock file, right? You can see that this is a lock file, and this lock file, if it is there, then what it will do, it will make sure that okay, as of now there is one operation already running against that state file. You cannot run it. You need to wait, right? So that also we will see in our AWS project demo, right? All right, so I hope you find it a little bit informative before we start the data sources, right? So that's it for the day. I will meet you in next video where we will start our data sources. All right. So yeah, I would recommend to, or I would request you to please subscribe my channel and share it with other people as well who wanted to understand the infrastructure as a code, OpenTofu, Terraform and everything. And you just want to command your infra, right, with few lines of code. So yeah, that's what we are doing. All right, thank you, bye bye.